Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're already live. Okay, so we've already checked in. Y'all already know who Ebony is. Y'all already know who I am. So we're actually not going to spend all this time doing a bunch of uh bios and intros. Y'all already know who we are. We're going to go right in because we both have a very difficult schedule, and we also want to make sure we fit in a bunch of stuff. So we just want to jump right in. Cool.
Excellent.
Okay. So I and also we already agreed that I can call her Ebony and she can call me Raquel. So I just don't want anything in the comments to jumble up the comments. We cool on this. So,
Yeah.
but some of the things that I mentioned earlier are that like I wanted to start off with points of clarification because I had some questions about the original post, but then I heard Breakfast Club, which got rid of some of my questions, and then I heard your episode on acting up. So then I
Okay.
got rid of some other questions,
Mhm.
and I've also been reading your books, which actually added more questions. So I wanted to start off with points for clarification, so
Sure.
then I could come up with more questions that I may have.
Great.
Okay, all right, and I wrote my stuff down as well as like a
Like a
trick.
good academic should.
Yeah, I was
Excellent.
gonna say, yeah, I did. I got the pen, all that. Okay. So you stated since posting the original video. Also, y'all know what video I'm talking about. So like if y'all haven't watched it, that's your job to do your due diligence before this.
It's available
But
on thegrio.com, just so everybody knows.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the interwebs. You stated since posting that video that you actually have a more nuanced view of this issue regarding Black women. You specifically mentioned like the messaging being different for Black women of different income levels. Can you speak more to that clarification in terms of going to school and pursuing not only your regular degree, but your MRS degree as well?
Absolutely. So, what I realized after posting the original commentary video, the sidebar on the griot, is that this advice, if you will, that I'm framing to tell Black women to go to get the MRS degree alongside your bachelor's, JD, PhD, fill in the blank degree, it is more germane for Black women of higher income socioeconomic strata. Why? Because if you are already coming from a place of Black elite status or generations of Black financial stability and even elitism, you're not going to have the concerns of, well, I'm only 26. How am I going to provide for this baby? Because you have a financial safety net by virtue
Mhm.
of either your parents or the parents of the gentleman you are having the baby. So there's not that financial uh, crisis or threat versus when you are like myself and a lot of us that are Black women that find ourselves in professional spaces today. We are first generation. We kind of, as the kids say, got it from the mud. And so just because we come out of school with that JD 2 3 years later, we're not necessarily financially stable. It takes us years, in many cases 10 15 20 plus years to get to a truly financially secure enough place to be able to provide comfortably for a child. So I felt like I wanted to clarify that this advice I'm kind of suggesting for younger Black women is much easier to digest and execute when you're coming from a Black elite position in the first place versus those of us who are either first generation or for whatever reason are coming from more financially unstable backgrounds.
Yes, because you mentioned multiple times that you see marriage as you're looking into it as like an economic construct, an economic contract. Because you've been very vulnerable, and I think I wanted you to share a little bit more because I think people see where you are now in terms of and automatically go to a elitism and things of that nature. And I'm not going to say that's not present, but in reading your book,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit more about the Ponderosa, as it were, and like
Yeah.
where you actually grasp this aspect of mindset and things of that nature? Because I think a lot of individuals have just been introduced to you. I have not, which is why I was so concerned. That's why I said blink twice if you are okay, because we will protect you at all costs. But I think individuals don't understand, one, your background, where you came from, being reared by two, I would say four prominent figures if you include your aunts who also you stated resided with you at different times.
Yeah.
When it came to women, where you came from, being bused into a different school system,
Mhm.
having your mom having to come in and advocate for the fact that you needed to be taking the gifted class test, not next year, but this year. I don't think
Mhm.
people grasp that. Because I read the book. So like, I just want you,
Yeah.
can you provide that context as well before we even get into the questions? Because I think a lot of the comments that I saw were like, you know, why would she even know what we're going through or any aspect of where we come from? And she's speaking to a dynamic that she has no idea what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question, Raquel, but I want to start by a statement, which is simply this. I understand that
Mhm.
there are millions of content creators and nobody can know everything about all the content that we all consume.
Yeah.
And also, I I cannot, will not be regulated as a professional in this space due to people's unwillingness or
Mhm.
inability to consume all of the content that I've put out into the universe. As you
Mhm.
said, I've written not one but two books
Yeah.
that go into details about who I am, my cultural upbringing, and all of that. I've got over 100 episodes of Holding Court, which is my podcast that intersects law and culture, Blackness. And I've got over 150 episodes of The Griot with Eboni K. Williams. And that's just in the last couple of years we're talking about.
Mhm.
So what I would invite everybody to do that wants to engage on this particular topic in relation to my lens and my kind of perspective is consume as much of that context as possible, because that sets the context for the rest of everything that I am saying. I think what's really challenging is the cherry picking of this statement or that viral moment, and then trying to kind of make sense of it all. I think that I make a choice that says I'm going to put all of this work, and it is work, it's labor that I belovedly do, into the universe, and then I'm going to let people contend with it on their own terms. So that's my perspective. So I never go into creating content, and this is a choice. Some content creators do. They contextualize every piece that they put into the world. I choose
Mhm.
not to do that just for time reasons, quite frankly. I'm content rich, and so I'm going to give people the option to contextualize who I am, my work, and my voice in this space. My credibility really is what we're talking about, right, in this space, and then go forth as you may. But yeah, read the books, y'all. Listen to the podcast. I'm very, very transparent about how I grew up. Child of a single Black mother, a mother who did not have the benefit of completing her formal education, first generation college grad, first generation professional school grad, went out of public high schools. I've only been to public uh, elementary, middle, and high schools. My mother was extremely diligent because she didn't have a formal education. Her thing was education is liberation, period.
Mhm.
As a Black woman coming from the American South, I was born in Amite, Louisiana, which is to this day operating in pretty much one step past Jim Crow, if any steps. And so my mother knew firsthand that for a little Black girl born of the American South, named Ebony, no less, the only thing that you're really going to have to be able to armor yourself in this world is going to be your education. So her advice, like I think many women of her generation, was education, education, education. And alongside that, uh, men and boys can be distracting from those goals, seeing generations of teenage pregnancy, women and her classmates dropping out of school, all this stuff. So she didn't want that for me, right? So
Mhm.
her thing was go to school, go to more school, build yourself up financially to where you're not dependent or even interdependent on anyone else, because we know that oftentimes in this world, money is power, no matter who has it. My mother wanted me to be solely and exclusively empowered of my own destiny. And then at some point, she started asking me about grandkids. And I had to say, hold on now, Gloria, because when in this narrative was
Yep.
there a discussion around that aspect of family planning? And we do that in jest now. So this is not about blaming beautifully intentioned Black mothers to raise their daughters to get their education. It is about bringing complex dynamics to that conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to skip my next clarification point because I feel like my next point is going to take longer. Um, because what you're saying, in my opinion, and this is the dissonance that came up for me in reading your book and hearing the messaging, what you're saying is antithetical, in my opinion, to
Mhm.
what you're sharing in terms of what Black girls should be doing. Now, in stating that, one of my question was, you stated that like on the Acting Up podcast, you mentioned that you cannot speak to how to be successfully married because, and I quote, I have never stayed married, any of
No.
that. Like you mentioned your previous partner relationship, your previous marriage was a starter marriage. You
Yep.
got rid of that. You stated that you're in a relationship, I believe, for 4 years and
Mhm.
felt that that wasn't appropriate for you either.
Yeah,
But you
marriage
said,
is not for me. Let me just say that
yeah,
very plainly. Marriage is not for Eboni K. Williams, but I know it's something that many Black women do desire.
yeah, so it's something that many Black women desire. But you said what you can speak to is best practices and strategies to get to the marriage destination if that is your priority. You can't talk
Yes,
about motherhood and balance because you haven't experienced that yet,
correct.
because I know you shared that you're also about to go through the journey of your embryo transfer. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
Um, and when you're providing context, but my automatic question is, do you think that that's a responsible statement to make, saying that I cannot speak to what it's like to maintain a marriage?
Mhm.
However, I can speak to what you need to get there. Because, like, as a licensed
Yes.
clinical psychologist, as a mental health professional,
Mhm.
that is not an appropriate dynamic, right? I can't tell you how to make it going to thrive, as it were, but I can
Mhm.
tell you how to get to that contract. Do you feel as though that's a responsible statement for someone of such a huge platform to
Mhm.
make when you're trying to provide some aspect of this is your advice? I'm not going to tell you how to make it work. I'm just going to tell you how to make it.
Very much so. And let me tell you why. I think it's very responsible because I can't assume the conversations that you have amongst the Black women social circle, girlfriends in your life, Raquel, but I can tell you about mine. And I've asked friends, sorority sisters, Black women that I'm in close sisterhood with, and not so close sisterhood with, just Black women that I'm in conversation with. Flat out question. If and these are unmarried, never married Black women who have no children. And I say, if there was a scenario and God descended from heaven and he said, uh, I'm gonna walk you down an aisle, you're gonna get married, you're gonna have your day, your big white dress, your ring, you're gonna be somebody's wife, you're gonna have some children, and then I'm gonna tell you ahead of time, yeah, you're gonna be divorced. Yeah, you're gonna get divorced. Mhm. And you're gonna have split custody and you're gonna have child support and this, that, and girl, you might even be paying the child support because of your income.
Mhm.
Would you still elect the option? And the answer I repeatedly hear, Raquel, is yes. Yes. These are women who feel like they would like the opportunity to try it, to get in a position of marriage. And you heard Courtney and I going back and forth about this on the Acting Up podcast. She made, I don't know if it made the edit, but she asked the question, well, who in the hell would want to be married if not for being mothers? Because there are also Black women who just want to be wives. They're not as excited or interested in the motherhood part of the journey. They want to be married. They want to be wives. And I think that it's time for us to acknowledge the reality that in this nation and almost globally, right, there is still social currency that comes with being someone's wife. It is. And while it might not be for me, Raquel, I don't even know your marital status. It's not really that relevant to the conversation, in my opinion. Whether it's for me or you, the fact is there are Black women that do want that, that do desire it. Now, if it doesn't work out in the end, many of them would be devastated. Divorce is very hard. I can speak to that as well. But there are many of them that said, I would like the opportunity to get there, try it, experience it, and then make a decision as to whether I want to stay in that marriage or move forward. And they're very upset, brokenhearted, and devastated that they haven't even had that opportunity.
You said you don't know if I'm married.
No, ma'am, I don't. I know you're a mother.
Oh, oh, okay, okay. I might say, I mean, like, I know I knew you ain't look up nothing about me. Yeah, I'm married.
Okay, that's right. I knew you were a mother because that was in your bio. I didn't see wife, so I didn't know.
Mom is in my bio.
Yeah, I mean, not your. I'm talking about on social media.
Oh, I'm about to say what? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It said moms, psychologists, those things.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am married.
Okay, great. And congratulations.
It's cool. We're kicking it. I like them.
Yeah, and I don't think marriage is some anecdote. I've been very transparent about that too. But it's sad to me, Raquel, when I see women that deeply, deeply, deeply desire it and feel that they didn't have enough information on the front end of their journey into womanhood to make decisions that would have put them in best position. Would those marriages have worked? Were they too young? All of that, totally fair conversation and fair points of critique. But they feel a way that they don't feel like anyone told them early in their process that these were going to be best positions to pursue that aspect of your identity.
Okay. And what I would say is that that's not the best position, right? And I think we see it differently in terms of, you mentioned, I'm here to provide the facts to get to that destination.
Yes.
But as someone who works with individuals in like multiple levels, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have my own practice. So I'm dealing with this on an interpersonal level.
Sure.
I am a professor at Tennessee State University. So not only am I training the future clinicians of the world, but I have a specific platform with the students who are the age range that you're speaking to. And I've been teaching. Yes. I mean, this is my third university teaching. I also taught at another HBCU, Fisk University, also taught while I was taking my PhD. Additionally, doing science and research on it. And your thought process of getting to the place is providing some aspect of them reaching that goal. I feel as though that's an irresponsible place to put someone in when you're not thinking about the integral aspects of maintaining a healthy relationship. Because I feel as though, in your mindset and what you've been sharing, and with full transparency, your goal is to bet on Black, right? Like, you want to put Black people in a position to be able to achieve wealth and status and to get what they want to get, right? Like,
that last part is really it, to get what they want to get.
What they want to get, because you've mentioned multiple times, like, I'm not saying everybody should be married. I done told you multiple times, marriage is not for me. Okay. Right. I'm not saying you need to be married to have children. I'm telling you multiple times, I'm going through this embryo transfer, but I want you to know this stuff is expensive. That's why I mentioned the aspect of fertility. I'm not telling you to do, I'm just saying for individuals who want to be married. Sure. And what I'm stating is this aspect of the thought process of individuals who want to be married and stating that they would have wanted all of the information. I'm saying I find it irresponsible to think that just stating I can tell you how to get there is not providing them with all of the information like you feel as though you're indicating, right? Because I see you as this is a way of supporting the Black community. No one talked to me about it. You said, I got the same exact messaging, go to school, do everything you need to do, hell or high water. You said mom was the hell and the high water. I totally feel that.
Yep.
And you feel as though that was the messaging you were given. However, when you said you talk to your sorors and when you talk to colleagues and stuff like that, they're saying that they would have wanted that messaging. I'm saying the messaging that you're given is still not the full messaging, because yes,
that's fine. That's fine, Raquel. I'm not going to push back on that. I'm only one person. Yeah, I can't give everybody everything. Let me be clear. I'm speaking to a very narrowly tailored point to the probability. Let's be clear. We serve a God of miracles. So anything is possible by way of marriage at 35, 45, 65, or 85. Shit, the Golden Bachelor is on right now. People still looking for love and marriage in their 70s. I love it.
Yeah.
And I love it. That's not hyperbole or sarcasm. Yeah. We serve a God of miracles. It is always possible. I am simply speaking to the numerical probability of most Black women that I know who want and desire to be married to Black men, which is another nuance of the conversation, right? Lots of people in the conversation are saying, well, we should stop limiting ourselves to Black men. That's fine. That's fine. I have firsthand experience with that as well. We could talk about that another day. But what I'm saying is most Black women that I know prefer Black men. So I'm not in the business of trying to talk Black women into wanting other than what they really want. Okay. Right. I gave the example of the Birkin bag. It was kind of, cheeky, but if you tell me, Eboni, I want an educated Black man, I'm not going to talk you into dating a white man. I'm not going to talk you into dating a blue collar Black man. I'm not going to talk you into being bisexual and dating women and I want to help advise you the best way I know how, as to put yourself in proximity to a high concentration of educated Black heterosexual men that are potential partners for you. That's it.
And it doesn't matter if you are going to be happy in this marriage. It doesn't matter if you guys are going to be partners in this marriage, as it were. It doesn't matter if what I'm stating is going to get you into the proximity of the marriage is going to lead to the divorce. You're saying, I'm just telling you, this is how you get to the part of being married, not sustaining a marriage, not being happy in that marriage, not having a healthy marriage, just enacting this contract.
Because that is what I have been asked to advise to, Raquel. I think that's the important caveat. I told you, I didn't, these aren't fairy tales.
Who?
Well, I'm not going to name these women by name because, I'm not going to invade their privacy, but I encourage you, I implore you to talk to some of your non-married, never married, because I want to say this too. The never married answer to that is very different from the divorced answer to that. So a lot of the reason I can sit in this posture and be like, marriage is not for me, and I'm not pressed about getting married, and I'm okay to have my baby alone, is because I've been married. Let's be clear.
Mhm.
You know, I had the cushion cut diamond ring. I had the Sale blue label dress. I had the 5-course thing. You know, I've done it. I had the social elevation, as arbitrary as it may be, of being someone's wife and having someone else's last name, right? So who am I to sit in a posture of judgment if a fellow Black woman tells me, well, bitch, easy for you to say because you had it. I never had it, and I want it. And then it's up to me whether or not I decide to stay in it. I'm dealing with a very close friend right now who's having who's got 2 therapists. You know, she's in couples counseling with her husband. She's in single therapy with herself. She's trying to figure out if this marriage is still for her. So Raquel, don't mishear me. I'm extremely aware of the complications of overall mental health within a marriage, for sure. But that's not what I'm being asked to speak to. I'm being
that's
asked
what I want you to speak to then. So,
I'm sorry.
because that's what I want you to speak to, because you've been speaking about everything else. Do you feel as though the thought process of you're going to get to this process of being married,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to talk about any other aspect of what contributes to a healthy marriage? What do you think that will do to the mental health? Just thinking about, I need to make it to this date and I don't have to process compatibility. I went to college. I got my
Yeah.
BA. I didn't get a high degree because I was following this man around and I had to make sure I was graduated, right? So I
Right.
followed him around. We got married.
Yep.
What is the mental health and well-being of that marriage in your perception?
I believe that is why we're adults and we make choices, Raquel. I'll give you an example because I do hear the subtext, right? So let's go to law school. A lot of people told
No.
go be a doctor or a lawyer.
Don't
And
take me
we can do
back.
the same for medicine, but I'm just going to go to law because that's what I lived and know, right?
Okay.
Go to law school, make great grades, right? Be in the top 5% of your class, 10% of your class, so that you can be invited to these on-campus interviews, which all the big firms hold. And then they cherry pick the best of the best to be associates at their law firms, put on a partnership track coming out of law school. That is what every law student across this country at every law school from Southern University to Harvard is told. And many of them do that. And they get out and they get these great jobs that start them at $200,000 a year these days. And that is their trajectory. And I know how to coach any law student, especially the Black ones, to that track. I was on that track. I was that law student. I landed at a fantastic, prestigious firm. I was the first Black woman lawyer at that firm in its entire existence. And the firm was in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was over 30 years old. To this day, they haven't had a Black woman since. Anyways, I found that lifestyle to be detrimental to my mental health. I did. If you talk to enough white collar firm lawyers, you will hear that same story. I was drinking too much. I was not rested. It was not a productive pathway of life for me. But Raquel, who am I to tell young law students across the country every day, especially Black ones, not to pursue that trajectory? If they want to be, I'm very serious. If they want to be at Jones Day, if they want to be at Sidley Austin, because here's the other thing: for every Eboni K. Williams who it's not for, there is for a long time Michelle Obama who it was for. You know, she enjoyed being at Sidley Austin, billing 90, 100 hours a week for a period of time. So I think that we have to, I believe it's important to give people autonomy and choice to experience these different pathways of life, whether it be marriage, firm life, home ownership. That's another one, right? That everybody's preaching home ownership. It's not for everybody. Some people can't stand. They want to pick up the phone and call a landlord when something's broken. They do. So I can tell you how to get to home ownership, but then I'm not going to sit here and be responsible for the fact that once you got into home ownership, you're unhappy, you're dissatisfied, then sell your house and go back to renting. That's it.
Yeah, I don't see that as the same thing.
Okay.
And I think how much contact do you have with college students right now?
I mean, certainly not daily, like your experience teaching, but I mentor them a lot. I speak to a lot of college and law and graduate school, classes. I keynote a lot of Balsa and this and that. So I was at Harvard right before the pandemic, at the Harvard Business Schools, talking to only their Black students. So, probably more than most non-teaching professionals.
Yeah. So when you mention this aspect of who am I to state this, I think you're a prime person to state it because your messaging is, I am speaking to, this is what you're stating.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to individuals who, if you are deciding that you want to get married, I'm talking to this younger group. So to make the statement, who am I to say it? You're the key person who started the conversation in this narrative. And I see this dichotomy of you're mentioning the aspect of there are so many individuals who are in your age range and my age range who are having these conversations.
Yeah.
But this messaging isn't directed towards them. This messaging that you're given is
Yes,
directed
you're
towards
correct.
individuals who have not even been able to become their full self. So when you mention a
Yes.
statement such as, who am I to speak to them? I agree with that. That's what
Yeah.
I'm like. I don't think this was a response. I think this is a
I
responsible
know that.
conversation.
Yeah. And I'm good
to
with that.
have-
I'm good with that position, Raquel. I'm not trying to talk you out of that position. I would say
Yeah.
this. There are people, young people, like you say, because that's who I'm talking to, that have an intrinsic value around marriage. The same
Mhm.
way with the law school example. I could tell you it sucks. There are people that it means something to them. It has intrinsic value to them to be a law associate at Jones Day Law Firm. It didn't mean shit to me, Raquel. So that's why I was able to walk away from it after 1 year, shoot the deuces, take a pay cut, and go be a public defender. But but that's a me thing. Everyone's not wired like that. So if you are a young Black woman, young lady, girl, whatever, woman, and it has a marriage and motherhood in a certain context, because we need to expand to the fertility part in a second, hopefully. Motherhood in a particular context, meaning with a husband or at least a romantic partner, that has intrinsic value for many young Black women. And I don't feel led to talk them out of that intrinsic value system. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. And it kind of, so, because you also mentioned previously, like, it's not your calling to do the work of dismantling systems, but your calling is to the navigation of broken systems in the meantime. And I also
Yes.
find that to be irresponsible to state that, like, when you're saying people are wanting to have the aspect of marriage,
Yes.
and I can talk to you about marriage, but not maintaining a healthy marriage, not having your mental health while being married. Who am I to speak to that? You're the perfect person to speak to it because you said that's the population you're addressing. When you talk about, I can talk about maneuvering these inappropriate systems, but not dismantling them. That's not my calling. That doesn't seem responsible because not acknowledging the systems in which these things were built, you can't
No,
really
when did I
even.
say I wasn't acknowledging them?
No, not acknowledging them, not doing the work of dismantling them, right?
No,
Because some
that's
aspect.
not my skill set. I mean, I have peers that are
Okay.
doing that every day.
Okay, I understand that. Do you believe that education is a integral part of coming to the process of dismantling something?
You mean education as in like academic study?
Yeah, like educating yourself on something. You said Frederick Douglass is one of your favorite people. You quoted him multiple times in your book.
Yes, of
And
course.
education is elevation, right? So
Absolutely.
if you feel as though people are saying inherently that they want to be married, do
Yeah.
you feel as though it's not appropriate to also query, what does marriage mean to you?
No,
Do
I'm
you
not going to
feel
do
as
that.
though
I'm going to tell you why. Let me tell
okay.
you how that lands. Eboni, I really want to be married. I want to be a wife. I want to have a husband. Girl, well, let me tell you about that. Girl, it's a lot of this. I'm not doing that, Raquel, because everybody's experience is different. And again, I am making the space for people having an intrinsic valuation of the construct of marriage. Period.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. That doesn't, and this is where my disconnect between your book, which your second book, Betting on Black, which I feel as though could be used as as an amazing model in terms of Black identity development, which is one of my specialties in research and work. This is where I find the biggest disconnect because I find like it doesn't seem like it's the same person writing this book. All of the quotes I wrote down from the book, liberation is found in knowing that who you get to be is your choice. But then also stating the fact that you have to divest yourself from the Mammy and Jezebel stereotypes.
Yes.
But also when you're doing these interviews and stating that men want individuals that are accommodating, more so nurturing. These are
Yes.
also words that are often used to describe the Mammy stereotype. And to
They
think
do want
that,
that.
yeah,
That's
they
what they
do.
want.
I'm not saying they don't want that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's not my ministry. But
Oh, of course not. And I'm not saying every man, but what you're
yeah, but
speaking
to
in
provide this
generalities.
aspect of messaging with
Yeah.
not even talking about the system that supports that narrative, to
But
talk
I
about
have
marriage
talked
from a
about it.
basic, to talk about marriage from like in terms of just getting there without even saying it's not my ministry to have a conversation about you're saying marriage, but you may be actually wanting partnership and not thinking that partnership and marriage are going to be synonymous. It's not my ministry to discuss. I can tell you how to get to marriage, but I'm not going to tell you how to maintain a healthy one because that's not my ministry. I'm just going to tell you how to get there. And although this may contribute to the detriment of your well-being, and so we can get to the fertility process, as someone who specializes in trauma, the detriment of any child that you rear in this relationship, I'm not going to tell you how to be healthy in this. I'm just going to tell you how to get there. And to have the question as to who am I to state that when we can acknowledge that your accolades are racks on racks on racks, just point blank, period. Like there's no aspect that doesn't see you as an accomplished person. I find it to be irresponsible to do this thought process that you're stating. I'm talking about the basic part. I'm talking about stats. That is not how human lives work. And that is not how you and your platform should work when people listen to you. That's what I'm saying is irresponsible. I understand you're saying I'm telling you how to get there. My job is to help you when you get there, and you're coming to me like I just was told to be married. Domestic abuse. I was just told to have the child because when it comes to fertility, I can't afford $50,000 on the embryo, like in this aspect. So I just made it there. And now your child is feeling as though one, emotional enmeshment because they feel as though they're the only purpose to be there. Their inappropriate maltreatment. And the messaging is, but I told you how to get there. Figure it out.
Because you said you wanted to be there. Because you said you wanted to be there.
You wanted to be there. But the aspect, can you acknowledge the fact that the aspect of stating, I'm just going to tell you how to get there, not how to be healthy in it, is irresponsible.
No, I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to say that, Raquel. I think you can continue to say that, and that's fine. But I'm not going to say that because I don't pick up the mantle of convincing people what they should or shouldn't want. I think that's where we are kind of ultimately in conflict with our positions on the issue.
Okay.
I would push back on the notion that I never address systems. Like you said, I wrote a whole book that talks about, these constructs and where they come from historically and academically and all these things, which ultimately most of them derive from white supremacy, and which we know. And guess what? Black women still want to be married to Black men. Still. And therefore, if that is what you desire, and I can look at basic dynamics, positioning, proximity, numbers, for all of the misogyny and patriarchy in which they stem from, we all know what most men tend to desire from the romantic women partners in their life. And it's not being challenged. It's not having an equitable, empowered decision maker beside them. Like those just aren't the things that most men want. Not all, but most. So that is the construct in which I am speaking to. All right, sis, you're telling me you want to be married. You're telling me you want to be married to not just a Black man, but a certain type of Black man when it comes to education and social status and income level. I am telling you, based on my lived experience and that of the women around me, there is never a higher concentration of that pool of that particular kind of Black man than when you are in spaces of higher learning. That's it.
So my question, I guess, is why is this the realm where you choose to provide a basic perception? Nothing. And honestly, if I was going to look in terms of individuals, I would not think that you, Eboni K. Williams, is synonymous with basic in any way, shape, or form. However, that seems to be the word that you continue to use. So why, when discussing marriage and the intricacies of that and maintaining a healthy relationship, why is that a realm where you're comfortable with providing a basic message when nothing else about what you do is basic? Why is marriage, the partnership that can lead to, and we'll get to fertility after this, can lead to the benefit or detriment of you linking yourself to someone? Why is that the conversation you choose to be basic in? Because you're not a basic person. Why is this the conversation that you feel is appropriate to be basic on?
Yeah, well, I would not frame it that way, obviously, but because it's a basic desire. So I would say that I'm pretty basic on home ownership too. So I wouldn't say, I think, we can use basic, we can use simplicity, right? If you tell me you want to be a homeowner, especially if you tell me you want to be a homeowner and you own your own business, I'm very basic in the advice I give people that are 1099 workers to get into home ownership. And I speak about it at length. I have whole podcast episodes, multiple interviews. You need to show at least 2 years of income in which you are making 3 to 4 times that of your qualified mortgage. And if it's a jumbo mortgage, more. It's the same thing. Some things are complicated, some things are simple. When you want to get into the nuances of the consequences of marriage, they should be talking to Dr. Raquel Martin. If you want to talk about, no, let me finish my statement, right? And if you want to simply talk about the lived experiences of those of us who made a decision, and in my case, I don't regret it, Raquel. So this is where it is personal for me. I am somebody who, given the choice, would still have divorced my first husband, would still have ended my most recent engagement. And I actually have some level of excitement and confidence going into my single motherhood journey. But I've had enough conversations with enough other Black women who are similarly aged as us, who are deeply brokenhearted. They're deeply brokenhearted when they go into a fertility clinic at 37 or 42 or 44, and they are told, some of them married and some of them not, you have no ovarian reserve whatsoever. Zero, not one egg left. Or they're told, you got a handful of eggs, but let's go ahead and harvest them and see what they look like. And all of them are abnormal. Or they had maybe a mix, and then they go to make embryos with either their romantic partners or their husbands or a sperm donor, and they're told they have no embryos. So I'm having those conversations probably more often than I'm having those conversations probably to the frequency, rather, Raquel, that you are having with college students, right? And so that's really the lens in which I'm speaking from.
Yeah, and adults. So your perspective is, if you want to get to the aspect of entering into this economic and possibly, fertility contract, listen to Eboni K. Williams. If you want it to be healthy and
Yes.
possibly have healthiness in this mindset, then you listen to Dr. Raquel Martin then.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And I'm gonna get into the fertility thing. I would argue that I don't also think it's responsible to divest the two, but I can also understand your aspect of saying, I'm staying in my lane.
Yes.
I'm going to provide this, and I can understand that. I would just say that your lane has reached into mine, and that was
I willingly and lovingly hand them off to you, my dear. I really do. I swear that from the bottom of my heart.
Don't talk to me about that. I didn't tell you that. I didn't tell you. Said I'm not going to tell you you're going to be happy. That's not what I said.
But I literally never said that. I never said you're going to be happy. Yeah, that's I never. I don't think marriage is for a lot of people that people that want to be married think it's for. But that's another conversation that I am not. Who the fuck am I, Raquel, to tell a Black woman who tells me I want to be a wife, girl, you don't want that. Do you know how that lands? That lands fucked up. So go try it, sis. Let me know. Yeah.
Listen, Eboni, now cursing is the way to my heart. So I need you to not.
Have you ever listened to an episode of Holding Court? And no shame.
I have. And that's why
you know how I really get down.
I do. Yeah. And that's why I just need you. Listen, I can't focus when people are cussing around me. I enjoy it too much. So I need you to just help me focus, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I just had to say that because that's how the conversation goes with my girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, they've seen my divorce, and not just mine. They've seen their mama's divorce. They've seen their auntie's divorce. They've seen generations of this. So a lot of this is not as kind of blindly, it's kind of being framed in this conversation. These are a lot of Black women that are saying, look, I know it's hard. I know the statistics are 50% divorce rate. And guess what, bitch? I still want my day. I still want my opportunity to see if I can be successful in it. And so for those women, that is only, I'm very narrow group. That's all I'm speaking to.
Yes. I would say it's not possible to speak to a narrow group when you are in over, 85% of homes in the nation.
Girl, people don't be listening to me. Don't worry about it.
I do though.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I hear you, but this is where,
speaking to a narrow group isn't possible with your platform, Eboni. You're not narrow. That's why I mentioned my concern about talking about being basic. Nothing about you is basic. So how even?
No, but I do think some things some conversations warrant simplicity. Just to put by the way, Raquel, I think you might make space for this. as a
Yeah.
starting point. Nothing about what I said on the Grill or the Breakfast Club or Acting Up podcast is designed to be the totality of this conversation. Let's be
yeah.
very clear. Huh?
Yeah, I'm assuming
Right.
that's why you
So
said
that's
let's do
part of
this.
why, that's part of why we're having this conversation today, right?
Yeah.
Is because all of these, my work is multifaceted, but the main thing is to be a catalyst for hard conversations. And for that, I feel I'm very successful. Whether it's Black women dating within or beyond socioeconomics, as started with by bus driver gate, right? So it's not designed to be a self-contained, this is the mandate, young Black girls go. It is exactly what it's doing. It is manifesting, it is blossoming into different pockets, different group chats, different fodder on various platforms, both social, linear, in people's text conversations and group chats, so that we can finally really be vulnerable and honest enough to say what we really want. And like you say, what do we really want? I'm saying I want to be married, but do I really just want a wedding?
And I'll throw y'all a party. Black women,
Right.
I will throw y'all a party. My biggest concern is that, like, that's my biggest thing. Like, Black women, listen, let me say something. I'm working with your kids. I'm working with you. I'm working with your parents. I'm teaching y'all in class. And I'm the thought process of, oh, well, they may not know what they want. That's where I'm just like, I appreciate having the conversation of, and I think this will be another episode, or maybe even on your podcast of, well, where do we go to the conversation of upending? Let's talk about what we actually want.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's a secondary conversation.
Yeah, like you mentioned, they may just want a party and to enter into a marriage.
Or they really might want the tradition. And I think a lot of this is tradition, right, Raquel? It's a lot of this is legacy, and I don't come from that background. So that's, again, where I'm not positioned to speak to, what it must be like to carry on a legacy of 5 and 6 generations of marriage and all of that. But I have very best friends that's very important. And it's not important to them.
That's not important. I'm not saying that's not important.
Oh, no. I'm not saying you're not. No, I know you're not. You're a married woman. Of course, you're not saying that. What I'm saying is, what's not important to those women, for instance, is them being in positions of economic power. That's not important to some of these women. And I think for a long time, I was confused about that, because I was narrow-minded and thinking, what do you mean? Every Black girl that's at Chapel Hill alongside me wants to be a boss. I just assumed that. And then, I grow up a little bit more and I live a little more, and I realized, no, bitch, that's not everybody's goal.
Yeah.
Everybody ain't trying to be out here and be the next president like you, bitch. Some of these women want to be educated. They want to have knowledge. They want to expand their intelligence, but their primary desire is to be a wife and a mother. And I've had to make space for that diversity of thought and desire within Black womanhood as I have gotten older.
Okay. I think I actually know the answer to this statement, because you kind of mentioned it, but you said one of the things about fertility, it being a big cost. You're deciding to do the embryo transfer soon. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that, really.
But you mentioned you're ready to pour into someone else finally.
Yes.
It took a very long time to get there.
Yes.
And also, and this is where the disconnect comes. When you were on the other podcast, you mentioned, I'm not talking about motherhood. And I'm not talking about, I can't tell you what it's like to balance motherhood in that, because that's not where I'm at yet. However, your messaging does inherently include the aspect of fertility. And when we're talking about fertility, we're talking about motherhood. And the way I see it, as this is where I feel as though it's irresponsible not to go into more detail. You're stating, if you want to get married, I can get you there, so that you can have a higher likelihood that you can have a child, and I can get you there too. But not acknowledging the fact that none of this makes the possibility that it's going to be healthy. It's also detrimental to the child that you may bring in here. Like, yes, I can make it so that you have a higher likelihood of getting married and having a child. Can I increase the likelihood that this child will be healthy as a result of this choice that you made? No. And that was another point where I felt that was irresponsible.
I know. I hear that. I make space for that. And I would say in retort that many people feel like what I'm doing today is irresponsible, Raquel. Many people, Black women, Black men. How dare I go create a child that upon birth will be fatherless? Let's be clear. Many people have a strong critique to that, a moral, disregard for it even, right? And it's actually something that I have had to contend with and pray about, especially being a fatherless Black girl myself. You know, you know enough of my content. I just found out my biological father's fucking name 2 years ago. I didn't know the man's name. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know what his voice sounded like. So nobody can speak to the trauma and let me be clear. Now that I even know who he is, we still have no relationship. This is a man who, for his own personal reasons, he's been married for 40 years. He's got other children. He does not desire a relationship even to this day. So I understand deeply the trauma that is associated with being raised and living life fatherless. Fatherless. So many people would say that my choice is filled with trauma, that I'm putting this child at the onset of its very existence in a poor position. So that kind of is the framework in which I'm working from again. This is Black women have to make, I think, some of the most difficult, high stakes decisions as it relates to how we navigate this life, more so than any other cultural group in the world. And so I think that's the broader conversation, is when we make choices today, that will take some choices off the table tomorrow. And when we lean into certain choices today, we should have as much awareness as possible that some other choices down the road will look different. And that's really the bottom line of what I'm saying.
Yes. So as a licensed mental health professional who works with children, and I just want to clarify, individuals who feel as though the perception of choosing to be single by choice is comparable to trauma and detriment of the child, you're wrong. I'm just going to look at the camera. Licensed mental health professional. I'm working with individuals that are traumatized. And this isn't even just for you, but just that's false.
Please.
So individuals who have a problem with that, talk to somebody else about that. If you
right, but that is a prevailing thought, and I'm really glad you just took a straight to camera moment.
This is just science. That's just wrong.
This numbers. No, I know, because I had to research it, Raquel, because I wasn't going to knowingly and kind of morally choose to do that to an innocent baby. So I did some of the research, not of course to your extent, but understanding that numbers for numbers, children raised with single parents versus those. Our numbers look comparable to healthy two-parent households. Where those numbers look different are divorced parents. So I understand all of that, but most people presume that this is an irresponsible choice. I'm just telling you the truth.
Yes. So just to provide clarification, the reason why I wanted to confirm that when you mentioned that some people will think that my choice is inappropriate, I want to clarify that is wrong, because it goes to my point. However, the thought process that bringing a child into a relationship that we're saying we got you there, but it's not going to be healthy, that is dangerous and that is unhealthy. So while your choice to bring a child into a healthy home, to make the decision that you want this child to be here, to take the time and the energy to put into that child and to pour into that and bring up and set that up, that is not unhealthy. But to bring a child into a relationship where there is no thought process about the relationship being healthy, that is detrimental to the mental well-being of a child, because a lot of times people do think that there's this thought process that being divorced is detrimental to the child. Being divorced is not detrimental to the child in itself. And that's why some people really get messed up when they're like, you came from a single parent household. Oh my God, you seem so well adjusted. And I am, right? Because it's not the aspect of divorce. It's poor conflict resolution that often led to the divorce. And there are also many people who amicably divorced. And parents and kids wouldn't know what they would be like. I wouldn't know what to do if my parents were married. I'd probably be miserable, right? So if your thought process of some people believe that your perception of what you're going to do is unhealthy, they would be wrong. However, the perception that bringing a child into a relationship that you, like you mentioned, you guys got married, you had a child during your fertile age, we didn't make sure this relationship was healthy, that is detrimental to the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of a child. That is dangerous.
Absolutely. But what I think most women would say is nobody's going into their marriage with the hope and expectation that it becomes unhealthy.
Yes, but they are not going into a marriage with the hope and expectation and thought process of what the baseline needs to be healthy at all. They're just going into it to go into it.
Right. So, I'm just saying, like, obviously, I'm not a marriage counselor. If you're getting married, you should be seeking out professionals just like you for pre, during, all of that. I'm simply speaking to this. I want to say this, though, about the single motherhood thing, too. In addition to it not being baseline unhealthy to do what I'm doing by you being a single mother, the other reality is a lot of Black women, but Black women in period, don't want to choose this option for social stigma reasons as well. Raquel, I was just on
I
a
get that.
panel yesterday,
Yeah.
but it's just true. It's just
I
true,
get that.
right? Like
Yeah.
we're not very far removed from a public policy narrative that said Black single mothers were welfare queens, that
I
said
get it.
Black single mothers were perpetual states of struggle. That's, all of those things. So
Yeah.
to kind of quote, be another statistic is not desirous of a lot of Black women. And then let's be honest, parenting is hard anyway. Nobody knows that
Oh
better
my
than you,
God.
because you're an
Listen.
actual parent. So I've got
Listen.
girlfriends that do have the bag. They make up, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. They could very comfortably afford to do what I'm doing. They're in their early 40s, and they're like, "Girl, have fun. I will be auntie." As much as I want to be a mom, I don't desire to do it alone. That's not. I want to create a child that it was at least born in love. I want to create a child in which I have a father, even if it's a co-parent, right? So even if we are divorced, there's some checks and balances into the responsibility of raising this little person responsibly. So to put that all on my shoulders is not a choice that I think most Black women are willing to make.
I don't think they should have to. I would also state that, like, a lot of times people mention the fact that you create a village. It takes a village to raise a child. But one of the things I advocate for in mental health is create the village that you deserve, because and what you're doing is you're creating your family. A lot of people weren't born into a family that they deserve. So I feel like you can create the family that you deserve. And you always mention the fact that you have this support system and this whole community. So I also want to state, for women who have this thought process of thinking that, and men, because some men they want to have kids and they don't want to have kids with these women either. This thought process that to stay in a marriage, to get to a marriage, is the only opportunity to have a child and be happy, because that's the only way to provide them with a stable household. I want you to understand that family of origin and family of choice are comparable. You heard Eboni talking about she just got her biological father's name and still has no interest to engage with him, and she's still a fully functioning person. From the mental health perspective, I just don't want the messaging to be, I'm gonna tell you how to get there. I'm not going to go into the next aspect of it, and then it's going to be detrimental to you as a person. Because the biggest thing that I got from your book, and I'm not even finished it yet, very good book. And as someone who recommends books all the time, I will recommend Bet on Black. I didn't read the other one, but I would recommend this one. But like,
you're gonna like Bet on Black a lot better. Go ahead though.
Yeah, you cussing it, so I appreciate that. But from Bet on Black, like, one of the quotes was, after all the Black girl magic, after all the Black girls rock telecasts, after all the beautiful hashtags, I've occasionally found myself to be a little shocked that we are still here when it comes to negative messaging. And I was like, yo, that's how I felt when I saw the Griot talk. I was like, what year is it? Like, what are we doing? Because you mentioned liberation is found in knowing that who you get to be is your choice. I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember you saying, like, if you want to walk around with your cootie cat out, do it, honey. That ain't got nothing to do with me, right? Like, you feel as though you have in your whole entire book, you have so many statements, and they're called, what are they called?
Bet on Black moves.
Bet on Black moves. And one of your Bet on Black moves was never stop reading.
Yes.
Never stop educating yourself.
Yes.
And in my mind, I thought that was antithetical to your message, because in my mind, how much are these women going to be able to read and advocate for themselves the way that every woman in your life rears you to be, the way that your book talks about being every single step of the way? How are they going to do that and still be in the mindset that you mentioned, accommodating to these men? Because you said on Breakfast Club, you said a lot of men try to be nice to y'all, and say that they want the next Michelle Obama. Right. They don't. They want you to come home and cook their food, and they want to know that their child is being reared by you, right?
And they really want you to suck their dick every day, every single day.
And like, have to say, listen, you need to be able to break my back like a glow stick. I need to also be able to provide you with quotes a la Michelle Obama. I need to cook like your mama and be pristine like I stay in church 7 hours. And
you need to look good on my arm at my company barbecue.
And not be irritable. And I'm not saying that's everybody's ministry, because y'all know that's not mine.
No, I know, but we're speaking generally. So here's the thing about choice, right? Let's go back to the quote in the book, because I want to try to reconcile that. I really believe choice works all ways. I think oftentimes when we think about kind of evolution of women's empowerment, we only think about that choice expanding in one direction. We think about it expanding in the Pussy Out, Amber Rose, Cardi B. What did they call that campaign they had a while ago? I forget, but
which one?
I don't know. It was something about just the sexual. Yeah, basically, yeah, the sexual liberation of Black women,
Yeah.
which nobody is more supportive of than me, right?
Mhm.
But that choice, I contend, needs to go the other way. And I'm speaking again from my own personal evolution in recognizing that choice. And I was one of those Black women that I'm not going to say ever looked down on, but I was confused when I started talking more deeply to my Black women friends, even really close friends, and recognized that we all went to the same undergraduate university. We all went to the same or similarly situated law schools and literally medical schools and PhD programs. And their focus and their ambitions deviated from mine. Their ambitions and their choices were much more focused on and preferred, and like where their deepest desire lied wasn't in empowering and financially, or just it just wasn't in that. It was in being wives and being moms. They wanted to put energy into accommodating their men. They wanted to put energy into caretaking their children. And not that professional, successful Black women don't also do that, but I'm saying everything is on a spectrum, right? And they're saying that they want the vast majority of their energy and time and efforts to be towards the latter, the accommodation, the caretaking, and all of those things. And so that's where that choice also, I think, has to be recognized. It shouldn't be shamed, and they should have liberation in that choice as well.
I get that. And as someone who holds both of those roles, like I am married, I have my own business, psychologist,
Mhm.
professor, professional
Yeah,
speaker, content creator. I am married. I have 2 children. I've been with my
yeah.
husband for over a decade. And the thing that, and a lot of times people will be like, somebody in this chat been like, you're married? I am. This is not I am not a relationship influencer. So you ain't never gonna see my man on my kids. Okay.
And we don't need to. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But the whole the thing that keeps it going, the thing that contributes to a sustainable marriage is the fact that we walked in identifying what our relationship was going to be because we understood our values and we
Mhm.
understood what our joint values are going to be. And the thought process of getting into a relationship without acknowledging the wide span of values of you individually, but even as when you join, I
Mhm.
feel like that's unhealthy because a lot of times I feel like we will contribute to the dehumanization of Black men the same way the world does, having
Mhm.
these mindsets that they want like one thing. They're not really tuned into the emotional aspect and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm not
But if
saying that at all. Yeah.
no,
Just
I'm saying
yeah.
like in general, I'm not saying you.
General. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you.
Mhm.
But when we don't provide the space for these conversations, when we don't take the time to understand who we are as people, and in basing ourselves in this aspect of choice, so that we provide Black men with the choice too. When we don't have the conversations about what do you want in
Mhm.
terms of marriage, I had before me and my husband were even married. I had conversations about I ain't never heard you say I love you to your parents. I do not like that. We have
Mhm.
kids, that ain't happening. We wasn't even talking about marriage. But we had
Right.
to have those conversations
Mhm.
beforehand. So through the thought process of some aspect of being accommodating
Mhm.
and sublimating yourself in order to get the ring,
Mhm.
I feel like is the opposite of
Now, I didn't say that. I'm not
no, you
selling.
didn't. Well,
Yeah, I
when
was
it
like,
came to being
this is not about. Oh,
accommodating,
this is not. I'm not the person telling women to go make sandwiches.
oh,
And
my bad.
yeah,
No, okay, my bad, Ebony. Let me
yeah,
correct myself. Ebony did not say to be accommodating. She
no.
is stating that as you get older, because a lot of people also mention the aspect of market value. She didn't mean market value like stock and chattel slavery. And the only reason why you would think that is if you didn't follow her, because she talks about, I don't think everybody knows, but, oh, I think I froze. Did I freeze?
Just for 2 seconds.
Oh, your bachelor's is actually in Black Studies.
Correct.
So that's not where she would come from in the first place. But it was actually the aspect of market value, relationship market value, not in terms of
Correct.
like
Correct.
being like, oh, this person is on, she's got an 8, she's got a double D cup, and she wears this size. It was on relationship market value. It's not actually on
Only.
like being in the
Life
stocks
value.
only.
Life value for Black women. Yesterday's price is not today's price. It's going up,
Exactly.
up,
So
up.
just to
Yeah.
clarify that, but I'm saying that the aspect of women being sublimating themselves and getting to that point of when they feel as though these Black men are they want them to be accommodating, they're
Mhm.
actually setting themselves up to be in unhealthy relationships because we're not providing them with the option. But now that we're talking, you're stating that that's not what you're saying, that's not what you're getting into. So I'm like, some of my questions, and that's why I needed clarification, some of my questions don't
Right.
apply because you're just saying I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying how to get there. I'm not telling you how to keep it.
Correct.
I'm just saying how to
Correct.
get there.
Correct. That's it. That's it. And I want Black women to have whatever they want. I want to just kind of keep going back there. And I do think that as we advance a conversation that is empowering Black women in a specific direction, that is around educational and financial, and just power. And not to say there's not power in being a wife and mother, because we know that there
Yeah.
is, but I'm just trying to kind of make the space for the Black women that deeply desire that, and they don't want an unintended or at least unexpected consequence when they come out of medical school or grad school, and they've built their practices and they've got their tenure, and they are already partners, and now they look up at 36, 7, or 8, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to partner, and a few different things happen. In addition to their dating market value looking different than it did at 27 or 28, most of us tend to be less agile at those points in our life. Why? Because we've positioned ourselves to be extremely independent, which is a beautiful thing. I love that nothing happens in my world, more or less, unless I want it to. But that does make me, and most women positioned like me, less willing to participate in some of the necessary compromises of doing life alongside a partner.
Okay. So I have one more point and I'm gonna wrap up because I know your schedule is tight.
I hate that you're frozen, but go ahead.
I am. Yeah, me too. I don't know what's going on. As mentioned, I mentioned StreamYard, but because I feel like this would be a good conversation. And you have podcast episodes and you got like 50 different shows. So feel free to, just invite me on one of your 50,000 shows so we can get into this further. But my last question, do you feel as though this thought process deprives Black women of their power, as it were, if they're going to take the time to dedicate more of themselves to someone else, even if it's under the pursuit of marriage? Do you feel as though that contributes to the uplifting of Black wealth, as it were, which I feel as though is one of the tenets of what you believe in?
It is definitely one of the main tenets that I believe in. I think this is where it's interesting, right? So I think from a solo standpoint, because I guess there's two ways to build wealth, right? Well, there's many, but two primary, and one is individually and one is collectively. So I have been able to build a good amount of wealth individually, and many, many, many Black women have done that a lot, as well. One could argue that I might have been an equally effective partner in building wealth alongside a man, in that scenario, in that context. And perhaps we could have built that wealth together, and maybe that looks similar to the wealth profile I've built solo, or maybe it looks different. But I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think wealth building, so here's my answer. Wealth building in Black America can be accomplished effectively as individuals and as partners.
Okay. And do you feel, as someone who talks about the aspect of, never stop reading, never stop building yourself and consciousness raising, do you feel like the messaging regarding taking the time and the mental energy while also pursuing academic endeavors to also put a big chunk to pursue another person before you've even decided who you are, do you feel like that's an appropriate setup for you?
I think it can be, because here's the other side of when you don't do that, is we're putting everything into ourselves, which, again, I don't regret my choice. I bet on Black, I bet on Ebony, and the return on investment is plentiful. Let me be very clear. But also, I'm not sitting up here brokenhearted and devastated because I don't have a husband, and because I'm going to be raising this child solo. And because there are too many Black women that I love and care about, Raquel, that are devastated and brokenhearted around that, I'm saying that maybe their end game isn't exclusively around the self-investment. That, they could sit up here and be boss and this and that, and it's incredible and great, and they do love that aspect of their identity, but they also feel incomplete. They also feel that I got one girlfriend, and this will be a good anecdote to end on. She's VP of a company that y'all all know and use daily. She makes over 300,000. She's in a Divine Nine sorority. She's stunningly beautiful, like literally could probably go win a beauty pageant tomorrow. She's 42 and never been married, no children. And with everything I just said about her incredible, beautiful, powerful life, she can't even celebrate any other aspect of her life or identity or accolades or accomplishments because she admits she is too distracted, Raquel, by the fact that she is dating feverishly. She has frozen eggs. She did two retrievals actually, and she doesn't want to use them because she doesn't want to be a solo mom, and she is just deeply kind of obsessed, really, with trying to hurry up and find a husband. And I feel for her, not because I just feel bad for her because she can't even celebrate and relish in this incredible life that she's worked so hard to build for herself, because deep down in the crevices of her heart, what she deeply most desires is marriage.
I can understand that. Can you see that there are probably comparable narratives of women who feel as though they made that sacrifice early on? You know,
Yes.
and
And
feel
feel like
like
they gave it all up.
they gave it
Absolutely.
all up.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so and that's why we're just making space for both. Like, this is not an either or. I think the biggest challenge for us as Black women is doing as much work as humanly possible with clinicians like yourself as early and often as possible to get really deeply honest, hard honest about
Yeah.
what it is you most desire. Not that you only desire, but that you most desire, and trying to make choices according to that. Because I do believe we can have it all. I do not believe we can have it all at the same time. And
Mhm.
I think you even are an example of that, right, Raquel? You've been married for 10 years. Now, I'm not going to put your
No,
age
I
out
ain't been
there.
married for 10. That man took his time. I've only been married for 6. We've been together for
Okay, so
13.
to me, you would be an example of somebody who kind of had a best case scenario. And I'm not saying your life or marriage or anything is perfect, but what
No,
I'm
I get
saying
that.
is
Yeah.
you were able to build yourself, pour into yourself, build an incredible resume, an incredible career, and because we serve a good God, connect with a Black man. I'm assuming your husband's Black, a Black
Yes.
man that you desired, have your beautiful Black baby, and go forth in union, in interdependence. I
Mhm.
don't think that there are the numbers, going back to the basicness of my argument, that say that your scenario is likely. Is it possible? Hell yeah. And I wish it for everybody. But
Yeah.
numerically speaking, the data is just not there. That's all.
But do you know what makes it possible is my husband and myself, before we were a husband and wife, is being honest about what our marriage was going to be look like.
Yes.
That's why I mentioned like pigeonholing, like putting men in this black men in particular in this aspect. I think sometimes society dehumanizes Black men in the way that we stated that we're not trying to dehumanize them, right? Like we don't provide them with the opportunity of emotional expression. We don't tell them, we don't say like, do you even want me to stay home, or do you want to stay home, or do you want to balance that? We just say Black men, society may say Black men want women to be accommodating. So I'm not even going to provide them with the opportunity to converse on this topic.
Okay. Yeah. That would be a
I'm
mistake.
just going to
That would, yeah,
say,
that
I'm
would
going
be
to
a mistake.
supplement myself. And when we
Yeah.
get older if we get divorced, that Black man can say, I never told you to do that.
Yeah.
You are the
No, I
one
think
who
that would be a
automatically
huge
did that.
mistake of any woman, period, to do with any man,
Yeah.
Black or white. And again, my Black female friends, they got married right out of professional school or shortly. I say right after. By the way, when I say that, I'm talking about 2 to 3 to 4 years. I'm not saying the next day.
Yeah.
They did have those conversations. They
Mhm.
did have those conversations like, listen, you're graduating from business school, Black man. I'm graduating from law school, Black woman. We are both agreeing that the first few years we're going to be in this city, but as your career goes this way or mine goes this way, we're both agreeing on the front end to move in the direction that is best interest of our family. So that might
Yeah.
mean 2 years when I'm partner track and 2 years when you. So I agree. And I think those conversations, those kind of interdependent conversations that you're speaking to, Raquel, can happen early on in the kind of partnership track, and almost not midlife, because y'all weren't that old when y'all got married, but a little later in the
Yeah.
game. We'll say it like that. And they
Yeah.
can happen even later. I'm still not giving up on love. Let me be very clear.
Good.
I still hope to fall in love again. I still hope to find someone I can do life with. Now, whether that's marriage, that's another conversation, but something loving and powerful. But
That's a very good
the
point.
difference is I'm not waiting on that to have my baby. I'm
That's a
having
good
my
point. And
baby now. Go ahead.
I want to solidify that Eboni mentioned a statement of stating whether or not that is marriage is different than partnership. So she is not stating that marriage and partnership are the same exact thing. She herself just
Yeah.
stated that, like, I'm still looking for love. Whether or not that's marriage, I don't know.
Right.
but looking for the aspect. So I think that's important. Thank you so much for going over time. Everyone said this conversation happened quick. That's because Eboni had no problem with having a conversation. She said, watch the full video, DM me. We scheduled like the next day. So like, so like, this was not a difficult conversation to have. This was not an aspect of being like, oh, I couldn't reach her. I just DM'd her.
Yeah, and I invite this, Raquel. I think this is like I said, I agree with your notion that if all I'm going to do is put out a 2-minute monologue and say, Black girls, go do this, bye. I agree, that would be wholly irresponsible. But that to me is where the secondary content, third content rounds are very important. And ultimately, I deeply respect, the credence that you give my platform. But girl, ain't nobody listening to me like that. They're saying that all I'm doing is creating a jumping off point. That's all it is.
That's what I think. When you mention like, who am I to do it? You're you. One of the comments mentioned, I'm in law school. I want to be like Eboni K. I'm looking in like when you say stuff like that, like who am I to discuss it? I don't understand what you're saying, because like even just to make that statement, I don't think that's truthful. From your career and your accolades and like all of the places that you're in, and I only know the top. I didn't even know you were on Real Housewives of New York because I only knew from like the academia perspective. Okay. That's what got me so frustrated because I'm like, I don't understand how someone who is so responsible and so steeped in Black identity development can make such a statement. So I personally,
and I'm also kind of a mess, and that's part of it, right?
We all are.
Yeah, we all right. So that's what I mean when I say that. Is that with all the degrees and all the accolades and all the success, and God knows I'm so deeply grateful for it all. I also don't even talk to my own dad. You know what I mean? Like it's also, and to me, that's the beautiful complexity of it. So this is kind of me making a greater statement of none of us kind of idealizing anybody too much, right? And not that you're doing this, Raquel, but even to the young lady in the comment, right? Like, don't be Eboni, please. I don't want nobody to be like Eboni. Be better than Eboni. Be better. Build on what I have laid as foundation, as I've tried to build on those foundation layers before me. And as each generation does more and learns more, I do think we are all responsible, right, to share that information. So that's all I'm saying. I think that we're the first generation that even has IVF as a viable option. Let's be clear. IVF is only 40 years old. That's it. We are literally the first generation that has an option, Raquel, where I can go say, here's 50 racks. Let me go try to pursue this baby. And by the way, I don't even have an embryo planted yet. So that might look like 100 racks. I have a sore girlfriend who ran out. She was 120 in. She ran out of money. And there's no baby. And so that's really where I'm coming from. I'm saying this route of focus, do you, build incredible things works. It works. And there might, not always, but there might be some residual consequence that you might want to have some awareness around. And to your point, when you do the let's get married fresh out of our highfalutin programs, there's also a lot of consequence that is potential there too.
Because they have to grow with you. I'm not the same person I was when I met my husband. He says I get more militant each year. That's hilarious. What he's like, man, I swear to you. I'm very,
and then we all know people that come out of those programs young like that, and they're successful.
Right? Because you started college at 16. I started at 17. And went straight through. Like my mindset wasn't that. So I just wanted to end on people are listening. I listen. I appreciate the dialogue. I honestly would love to hear you talk even more about like your tenets of Black identity development, because that was one of the biggest things I got from your book that I thought were really helpful. As someone who does like the research, coming up with a framework in that, I really appreciate that. And also, plenty of time to talk about this on any of your other platforms. And when you do work through your embryo transfer, I'm always down for any convo.
Sure.
No comment regarding parenting, and this isn't like online, is too like disparaging or disgusting. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm going to be very transparent about it, because again, you're right. I have in many ways started a dialogue that's complicated and what's the word? Emotional, deeply personal for Black women to have this conversation. And I owe it to all Black women who are engaging to show the outcome, and I don't think it's going to be necessarily linear, I'm very
And we
much,
don't want linear because that's not real. One of my
yeah.
favorite, and this is the last part. She's one of your sorors. You probably know Candace Bembo, one of my favorite
Oh
theologians.
yeah, absolutely. Love.
She mentioned the fact that she was like, when you look at this messaging, I think this also provides the space for individuals to acknowledge that this sucks, like to grieve the process of like having to even make this decision. And I do
Yeah.
appreciate the fact, even though I know you read the comments. Some of those comments did not pass the vibe check at all.
Oh, I didn't read the comments. I never read the
Oh,
comments.
really? Oh, I
No.
always do. But
It's fine.
I think
Yeah, I don't, because let me tell you why. And I love that people do read them. The comments are irrelevant to me because I'm very, very clear. I'm extremely clear, more clear than most, of who and whose I am. And my POV never comes from a thoughtless place, nor does it ever come from a malicious place. So right. No, so that's it. So as long as I pass my God check, I don't give a fuck about them comments, girl.
See, but it's different because as a licensed clinical psychologist, my mother raised me. I know who I am, so I know who I'm not.
Oh, I know that you do.
Yeah, I read the comments to make sure that look at clarity, because as a licensed mental health professional, if everybody has the question, that means I wasn't clear. So I'm just typically reading the comments.
It can mean that. It can mean that. It can. And I'm just telling you, as somebody who has also spent half of my career, as somebody who's classically trained in the art of oral argument, right?
Yeah.
As a litigator, and somebody who has spent half of my career, the last 10 years, as a professional media communicator, correspondent. I do know what I'm doing, and that's what people really need to know. So that whole girl, sis, you okay? Ma'am, I'm more okay.
All right,
than
but listen, can you understand my concern with get your MRS degree, and thinking, and just from seeing my perspective, being like, this is not even what I see from this person and their stuff, especially when in the clips it was a nuance. And I get that I'm not going to say anything about the individuals at Griot, and I understand the aspect of the perspective of doing that, watching the full video. But can you understand that if somebody that you look at who is steeped in Black identity development, steeped in the dismantling of white supremacy, always talks about Bet on Black, and then you see a video of them saying you're in school to get your bachelor's, but you need to get your MRS, would you not be concerned?
No, what I would be is curious.
Okay, all right. Well, okay.
No, in a skeptical way. In a skeptical way,
okay.
I would be curious. I always go to curiosity. So, like, if I saw Mark Lamont Hill, my colleague at the Griot, who I know to be one of the premier academics in Blackness, and I saw him just say something that was kind of incongruent or inconsistent with the person I know him to be, I would be very curious. Like, okay, if Mark Lamont Hill, of all people, is putting forth this argument, let me get under the hood.
That's so how is that different from concern, Eboni? Tell me how that's different from concern.
I thought the concern landed like snarky, like not like I'm real, and not just you, because it wasn't just you that said it. It's more like you're wrong, and that's the end of it. Like you're wrong, that's whack, I'm done with it. Versus that is very incongruent than the body of work I know you to produce. So let's get to the questions versus the conclusion.
I mean, that's what I thought I said.
Oh,
is that what I said?
It might be. I didn't know. There were a lot of people saying a lot of things.
Oh, I'm not saying I verbally said that. In my head, that's
in your head.
Yeah. So if I'm saying I'm concerned, because that's not even me, but even to say that I'm concerned and be like, to even direct it, because people don't tag people and stuff, to even direct it to be like, yo, this isn't me being concerned as someone who's like, oh, Eboni sucks. This is someone who I point blank said, hey, yo, I look at your stuff. I appreciate your stuff. I think you're educated. What the flip is happening right now?
So it wasn't even the only way to find out what's happening is what we did today.
Yeah.
The conversation. Yeah. So that's it. So we're saying the same thing. But yeah, I think a lot of people would do well, serve themselves to lean into curiosities more so than conclusions.
Yeah, because I think you can disagree and still have a conversation.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I don't think we agree on the nuance part. I feel as though there should be more conversation in terms of contributing to the growth of the Black community, which I feel is one of the tenets of your platform.
Sure.
But also I understand where you're coming from, but it hasn't changed what I thought. I just got clarity on your
expectation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just we don't have to change. I still feel how I feel. I still encourage young Black girls to that once they get to the core of what their priority list really looks like to the best they can assess at that point in life,
before their brains even developed.
I hear you. I know the frontal lobe thing. I do know.
I know
And also there is a level of brokenheartedness that I am trying to navigate for women that are in my position.
And that's what I see. And that's my thing. I genuinely feel like when you're sharing this message and it's like, listen, I'm not talking about like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm having conversations with people, and from their conversations, if I can help 3 women not have the same scenario that I talk to my friends with, which I'm assuming as someone who has picked their friends up off the floor, it sucks to be like, if I had only known this.
Sad. I don't want another Black woman, Raquel, to grieve, and that's the word that we've used a few times here at the later part of this conversation, to have to grieve a depleted ovarian reserve, to have to grieve all abnormal embryos. I think it is devastating. And if I can say one word to help 2 to 3 avoid it, that's the position I will take.
Okay, so just to did you feel attacked by my first video? Did you feel like
no? Well, I actually didn't watch the video, to be honest with you.
Eboni, now that's shady as flip, yo.
No, it's not shady, because why would I'm gonna tell you why. Because just like I don't watch any of these YouTube videos about my commentary, because I don't. Not Dr. Umar, none of these comments. No, never.
Dr. Umar commented. Now I don't appreciate being. Can we not? Don't.
No, I'm not equating you. I'm just saying. I'm just showing the scope, right? And the reason I don't is because I give content creators the space to create content for their base. And I'm not saying you specifically, Raquel, but it would only make sense that content creators go to their YouTube to create content that is designed for their base. So why am I going to, for my own mental health, right? Since we're talking about mental health, going to expose myself to content and commentary that could be traumatizing for me? I'm not going to do that.
How dare you use a buzzword that is going to, I can't say anything about your mental health. I can't say anything about what.
But that's the true reason. It's the same reason I don't read the comments. I learned this long time. I used to indulge and be in the comments, but I don't do that anymore, because you know what? Especially as Black women, there are so many people doing the work of dragging us. Girl, we don't need nobody else doing that. So I much prefer this. Everything that I wanted to hear about your points of disagreement with me, your challenges, your call to actions, your indictments of my responsibility on this topic, I wanted to do the way we did today. And I'm glad we did.
Okay. So it's not the aspect of like, I don't need to look up another, because like the term content creator, I'm a whole, you mentioned content creator.
I know, no, girl. I know you are a whole doctor of psychology and clinical and clinician and practitioner, but ultimately we all also, and just like I have, the academics that you ran down.
That's what I was saying. I made it a point to listen to every platform you were on. I made it a point to make sure I wasn't asking you similar questions.
Yeah. But we also create content. And I know the content creation aspect can be dicey. That's all.
I get that. Okay. Well, thank you for meeting with me.
Happy to. I will absolutely keep you posted as my journey continues. I wish you so many blessings as a mother, as a wife, as a clinician, and as a content creator.
Yeah, because I think I appreciate the fact that you provided space to, I think you often state like holding space. Yeah. And I don't think many Black women or Black men, I would love to have a conversation with Black men. I saw on Breakfast Club when a Black man called in, you said, this is not.
No, because there's a segment of Black men that have chosen to hijack and co-opt this whole conversation to serve self-serving need of their own mediocrity. So Black women are, they want Black women to hear from my messaging, stay barefoot, pregnant, shut the fuck up, and have our babies early and often. And that's not what, clearly that's not what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not, I don't, get the fuck out of here. Y'all still mediocre, and I still feel the same way about y'all. So that's a whole nother conversation. But also, the reason I'm not talking to Black men is because I'm not in a position to talk to Black men. I do desperately hope that the TD Jakes of the world, or whoever else they're listening to now that Kevin Samuels is dead and gone, I want Black men to talk to Black men about this same challenge as we talk about.
Listen to Keir Gaines is a good reference for that. Okay. He's actually a licensed therapist who is very transparent about stuff like that. And one of the references, but I appreciate that because I really do appreciate individuals holding space for, just like Candace Bimbo mentioned, people to grieve. And no one's stating that the grief isn't happening, but I appreciate that because we don't get that many spaces like that in the first place. Even you being on all of these television shows, just having that representation.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I hope y'all, I'm sorry we didn't get to questions, but we had a good talk. So y'all need to be happy with that. Bye.